It's been a little while, but we are here for another board game review, this time of Primal: The Awakening. And we are doing a solo gameplay review, and we're going to be scoring in 8 different categories. Those categories are quality, table space, minis, the miniatures, setup, fiddliness, satisfying events, choices, intrigue, and personal preferences. And that's 4 points total for each, for a total of 23 points of scoring for the general public. After which I will add and adjust points as to how I feel personally the game is for my total scoring out of 32 total points. So that's how these reviews work. And so let's begin with Primal: The Awakening, which features, and yes, it is quite monstrous, it features 13 giant monsters, one particularly so. Primal: The Awakening is a boss battler type of game, and I did play through the entire campaign and have a total of 18 plays. And so with that, let's begin with scoring our first category, which is quality. And for quality, I gave Primal: The Awakening a 3 out of 4. Pretty much other than the monster miniatures being big, there's nothing really that makes the game feel premium, and the miniatures are big because they're all giant monsters at 32mm or 28mm scale. There's a lot of cardboard tokens, there's cards, there's card dashboards, not really cardboard dashboards. As far as the visuals and such, the artwork and color presentation, the bindings and such are good. The box and organizer blisters inside are great, and overall very sturdy. So everything as far as storage is very good. But again, overall, the components are pretty much what you would expect with this level of game, at least. And so we move on to table space. And here I had to give this game a 2. Of course, it is big. It's going to take up a lot of space because, well, the miniatures are big. But does that mean that everything has to take up as much space as it actually does when you start playing? I don't think so. I managed to handle the game just fine with half of my dining size gaming table. For what everything is and does, it is a bit overinflated. Essentially, as you may have heard, it is a fancy card game. Somewhat. All the huge miniatures do, or the monster miniatures do, is turn. Literally. That's all they do. They don't move around the space much more than that. The characters, they move around them, but the monster miniatures, they just turn. So aside from that, the card layout all around takes quite a bit of space, particularly the hunter dashboards with their item cards, their armor, their actions, etc. You have the main monster board, and then the side, the dashboard, and all the cards laid out on that and around that. I feel that all this stuff can be tightened, and I wouldn't mind if there were more usage of smaller sized cards. But yeah, overall, this game requires a hefty, dedicated space. So unfortunately there, because I could see where the game can be compressed and you'll still have the same experience. So because of that, I give it a 2 out of 4. Moving on to the miniatures. And if you know me much, then you know I gotta have a minis category here. So for miniatures, I gave this game a 3, maybe 4. Let's get into this a little bit. So nice miniatures, good poses. Some are better than others in posing, but all are balanced in good quality, from the hunters to the biggest of the monsters. Yes, the monster minis are big, but they were designed to be giant monsters, and that does show. The designs overall, the concept art, all that is great. The monsters are fun. They're all beastly sort of monsters, but they're all different. You know, some are more reptilian, some are more insectoid, some are more mammalian. And so the designs and concepts are great, but there's nothing particularly over the top that you may expect from a game of this caliber. And so I was thinking a 3, but then I was thinking, because I did go through painting all of them, and the great thing about these miniatures, since they are so big, they're fun and good for displaying throughout the house, not just in a particular area because they're so tiny. Generally public friendly, they're fantasy, but there's nothing in them that's off-putting for a certain group of people or whatever. They're good quality as far as plastic. They're good quality as far as design and how they were finally outputted. And so for that, I actually upped the score because, that's what you're really buying this game for, largely, is for these miniatures, because again, you're handling everything with cards. They're only turning. They are pretty awesome miniatures, and I feel they are pretty versatile in the household. Look at this huge, beautiful dragon. So therefore, a 4 out of 4 for the miniatures of Primal, The Awakening. And with that, let's move on to the setup of the game. Considering how big the game is and how much table space it takes, the setup is actually not bad at all. So I give it a 3 out of 4 for setup. It's not perfect for even this size and scale of a game, but it does move things smoothly. Laying everything out does not take long. Your tokens are probably already there, and if you're changing the monster, you might just have to adjust a couple of different tokens. The rest are going to be repeating, so it's just all the monster cards. Your cards are going to be repeating for the most part, or with some adjustments. Not too crazy, not too bad at all, and I really appreciate that about this game. So 3 out of 4 for that. As far as fiddliness, and you may have heard that this game is a little fiddly, or some fiddly, or pretty friddly, it is a 3 out of 4, in my opinion, for fiddliness. How often do you have to go back to the rulebook? How smooth is the gameplay before you get interrupted with not being sure of what to do or having to be reminded? So, in my opinion, for fiddliness, it's really not that bad and is not that complex of a game. It's not that complex at all. There are many specific terms, and the player help cards are useful for this, but you will have to go to the glossary of the book, and that information will be fairly easy to find. So I recommend printing out the glossary, and you can find that there's a YouTuber that did that, and he provides the PDF for the entire glossary and what the different tokens do on the terrain. So I did use those, and also I wrote down a more accurate turn/round order of things to do for myself. Just a very simple little yellow sheet of paper that I have with this. It's not very complicated at all. I just find it be very useful to have that somewhere on the side. After certain things trigger, like when the monster runs out of behavior cards, or you run out of certain cards, there's certain effects that happen there. That's a great little note. So there's like 2-3 more lines that I have on that little list of things to do that I added there, and that's it. So for fiddliness, it could be worse considering how big that rulebook is and what people say. The actual gameplay is pretty simple. Again, you're just working through the cards. It's not bad. 3 out of 4 for that. And so with that, we move on into satisfying moments or satisfying events, points in a game that just give you those highs, those great moments. So for that, I give Primal The Awakening a 3 out of 4. The mechanics are satisfying, and how things work together for satisfying build-up. It's not excessive, but it's definitely there. This is just a battling game, so most satisfying moments will be on the battlefield. Basically, big hits on a monster, big moves, and nice little combinations. You can get a little excited when you're crafting the armor and weapons and getting those together. You know what you're going to expect. You're looking and you're already planning what you're going to try to get to next, probably what kind of item. It's pretty straightforward as far as the crafting goes. And crafting new things starts pretty early in the game and continues nicely as you defeat the different monsters. But with all the variety of the weaponry and items, you may just end up keeping your strategy, whatever it is, with that weapon that you like, and therefore crafting becomes pretty simple. I mean, that's really up to how your gameplay goes, but with mine, it certainly was pretty set, I guess, once I decided what weapon I like and it's been working. The character progression itself doesn't give amazing feelings. You learn of their potentials pretty quickly and pretty early in the game because you see what the next one's going to do as you're grabbing weapons. Unless you want to play everything completely in the dark and only reveal things to yourself as you're getting to the point where you can use it, you're going to overlap to see things that you will have in the future and what that's going to be like. So there is no shock or surprise and things like that as far as crafting and progression with your character. All in all, every battle will probably give you some nice moments and moments of luck and mitigation, but there are also those doom reactions the monsters can hit upon you too. And so that could quickly level out the dopamine fest in that sense that's going on in your precious little skull. So let's see if we can get that dopamine back up with choices. And for choices, the game gets a 3 out of 4. So we're staying in the same kind of rank as previously for scoring. The core game gives you quite enough stuff. The campaign length is good, and so are the variety of monsters. Although more variety in abilities that each character does would help to push the score higher here. The monsters maybe do a little bit better here because of all their variety, but once you get used to your cards and abilities and you get a new one or you upgrade an ability or a card set that you've chosen, it's not like there's a big step, a big jump there, like an ability that really pushes out there. The monsters do change things up a little, I'd say maybe more than a little, and they feel different in battle for sure, although they're still all just turning, right? But not really different enough that you have to change your working strategy and items much. Now, other people may have experiences differently, but for me, just sticking to my strategy, I mean, I kind of got through the whole campaign like that. You can find things that work better for a monster, for sure, and I did that once or twice, but overall, if you got a good working pair of things, then overall, the plays kind of repeat enough to where you can keep what you have and get through. So a bigger range here would certainly take away from the monotony of battling over and over again, as that's what the game is. It's just battling, pretty much. Also, exploring and seeing more choices in the campaign would have made this feel like a better overall product too. We don't necessarily need more branches because of the amount of monsters that you'll actually battle, but just how things branch out could have been done a little better here. For hunter types is certainly fine and enough, I think. Individual giant monster options, again, are great, operating from different elements. So those elements come into play and there's different factors. Maybe seeing more of that, a bit more contrast there, and in those player abilities. That would help with the choices to bring it up to a 4. Actually, I mean, they're all just bestial types of monsters, right? Just beasts, like animals of a different place, realm. But you're not going to see like humanoid, like kings or emperors of something of hell, or witches or spellcasters, things like that. Very much like, again, Monster Hunter, the video game. So that's to be expected, but just something to take note of. And I think with that, we can move on to the intrigue. When you're away from this game, what keeps you thinking about it? What's going on through your head? What feels are going on through your body? Are you excited? Are you curious to see what's going to happen next? Are you strategizing? Here I give Primal the Awakening a 2 out of 4. So not particularly high. This can certainly shift throughout the play of the campaign, but the shifts in the positive were maybe not often enough for me. I think after my 10th play or something, I started noticing how the crafting works. I got a little hyped up and then I played the next game and then that hype kind of quickly wore off, and I don't think there's a huge pull into it. There's something there that within me, something of that color of pooling that wasn't shaded quite so brightly and strong. Getting new gear is fun, but really it just takes one full battle of use to accept it as pretty much the new norm. The lore doesn't have much to pull you back in constantly. There's an overall giant mystery within it, which is really the whole thing. But no strong high points of discovering or learning something there. But I do appreciate the main write-ups that are there. So there is a little bit of lore, and if you don't read it, you'll be totally fine. I'm going to get into it a little bit more later from my personal reviews. So the total points there from all the 8 categories for the general public, I give Primal the Awakening 23 points out of 32, giving it a 72% or a 7 out of 10, or a C-. So as far as a solo game, maybe average for you, but now I recommend that you stick with me as I continue scoring the game and adjusting those points to my preferences, and you can adjust the points with the preferences that you agree with me. And if you don't adjust, and let's see what final score you will come up with and what I will come up with. The first one is for lore. I have to take away 1 point because it's not really that there isn't enough lore for me. It's how it's presented. There's a lot of abstract writing, and I get that the writer wanted to really express something here artistically and through their way of talking about this world, but it would have been nice with more kind of supporting write-ups to bring you more to the reality of the world, not the bigger aspects, the macro events that are happening in this world only. I would have liked to learn more of the world of Primal, the Awakening. It looked interesting and all that, and the characters, the written teases, and the illustrations were great, but maybe for what this game is, keeping things as they are might be the best way, as I don't feel this game is geared for heavy RPG players like more so Kingdom Death Monster. This is more straight out for the gamers out there that care more about the mechanic gameplay aspects. This is old school now a little bit for you guys, but sort of like when World of Warcraft or Diablo came out and they said they're the RPG killer. It's still an RPG game. It just wasn't that in-depth with the RPG side, but rather faster moving gameplay. So that's what Primal is more. It's more about battling out there, but nonetheless, I think for the amount of lore that there is added, it could have been more enticingly written. But if you don't care much, then don't minus or add a point here. -1 point for solo. The game does work well solo, using 2 hunters as I did, because it doesn't have much built-in adjustment for solo really. And when that's the case for a game, it's either tougher or too easy when you're playing solo. In this case, it was tougher in some moments. I have a lot of games and not much time, and so tougher is not a preference for me, because I like to just move through a campaign, things like that. But if it's your only game, then that could be totally okay. But having 2 characters is tough, especially when one gets knocked out. I mean, you're losing 50% of your attack power and everything for a couple turns at least. So it gets tough for sure. I mean, it is a cooperative game, so the solo aspect is already sort of embedded in the game itself, but it doesn't have any really specific adjustments. You're just playing with 2 characters. And for me to keep things moving along, I actually added a house rule for dealing with difficult monsters. If you're interested, my thing is if you failed, you died, and you're battling that monster, then for the second round or third round, if you still can't beat him, whatever your rule is, I only reduce the stance level of the cards of that monster by 1 level. I don't change any of the behavior cards, nothing like that, only the stance cards to 1 level, because they actually have that adjustable. It even features a level 0, so that's what they're for, because you don't start anything at 0. So that's why they're there if things are too tough and you want to level that easier for yourself. But overall, since there's no specific thing for solo that makes it even more special, I took off a 1 there. Now let's talk about theme, where I did add 1 more point to the score of this game, and the theme is awesome. I love monsters. This channel is World of Monsters. This board game is monsters, and not only are the miniatures wonderful and all that, but again, they're so big you can display them everywhere, and it's fun to do so. I really appreciate it, and I think it's a big selling point for the game. All the items relate to the monster's anatomy. That, of course, it's granted in the game, but it's awesome. It's well done. The artwork is beautiful. For you fans of Monster Hunter, the creators of this game may have done all of that better than the actual Monster Hunter board game out there. I have heard that better reviews of this game and such. Why not just get both and have a bunch of big miniatures, and when you're playing D&D with your friends or they want to borrow some cool big monsters, you got them hooked up. Next, I'm giving this game another +1 for the flow of the game, the flow of gameplay. The speed and flow of play is consistent and good, and mechanics help with this. Everything gets smooth with that. Changing between monsters and items can take some time, but that stage is all within the gameplay here, and nothing drags on for too long. For example, you're getting materials and things from the monster so you can craft. Those aren't even tokens. They're just numbers that you write down in the pad. More games should do that, where you can also get more personal feeling with it instead of having to collect tokens. So the battling and then the transition between the different monsters is smooth, fights steadily progress, and setup is fairly quick again, that all helps, right? And a big note, is that this can certainly help with the replayability factor. Next, I gave it a +1 for storage. The storage and organization of a game of this scale with so many big and many pieces is good. You should have no issues opening everything up, playing and putting it all back in this box, even though it's a huge box, granted, but closing it all the way shut. So it's not really a biggie, but I do find this something to note when you have quite a collection of these types of games. I'm going to talk about expansions. And you know what? For expansions, I'm not giving it a +1 or -1. I'm giving it nothing, but it's important for me to bring up, and you might consider taking off a point or adding one here. I actually played through the campaign with my Nightmare expansion active, and I never encountered anything from it during the playthrough. I knew when there was an option to fight a monster from the expansion, nothing really pushed me in the game to explore that expansion, which can be a good thing, so people without them don't feel the FOMO, but then having the expansion didn't bring any satisfaction toward that. And I'm only speaking of the Nightmare expansion. And anyway, I don't like to involve expansions in the discussion when we're reviewing the core box. Hence, I don't add or subtract points here. I'd heavily consider this in combination with how much you'd like to replay the game, or of course, you can always play one-shot battles. And you can definitely do that with the expansions and the monsters. And with that, Witches and Warlocks, I give this game my personal total scoring of 24 points out of 32. So just 1 point total higher than what I considered for the general public. But you may consider that, and your score might be different here. It might be different here with my scores here with the personal stuff at the end. It's a little bit higher than another game I've reviewed on here, although I do enjoy that one quite a bit. And so it's a average, enjoyable solo game. I feel like average is a little bit pessimistic sounding. I think it's more good, because it is good. It's enjoyable. It's just not beyond average of goodness. Overall, for me, a campaign of 12 scenarios for a boss battler of this kind hits a pretty good spot. I did enjoy, though, how the campaign progressed and connected, new quests showing up while others expiring, and those expiring still tying into everything was also a nice part of the bigger playthrough mechanics, so I do appreciate that. And as you slay monsters, you'll pretty much be able to get whatever you want almost whenever you need it. So there actually isn't much grinding there for stuff, which could be a positive. Such a positive that you might even want to add a point, because I didn't take off a point for this game for grindiness. Whenever I needed something, I pretty much had everything I needed every round. I didn't have to do much of extra battling, or I didn't do any extra battling. I just did whatever to get through the campaign. So on the other hand, it's so easy to get stuff and make stuff that the lack of grind there might even be a negative. Something to think about there. All in all, this is the boss battler game for the gamer. That type of person often that likes to skip through just things that don't have to deal with the battle and just get right back into the thick of things without having to worry about any scenario stuff dragging on and on. If you want to feel more of the world and the intrigue of living in it, then there are other games of the same nature, such as Aeon Trespass Odyssey, Kingdom Death Monster, or Oathsworn. Take all that into consideration, and I'd love to hear how many points you came up with out of 32 for your score of this game. And you've probably seen some of my videos of these guys painted. I do also have a Patreon if you're into that side of the hobby, as affordable as a Patreon can be, because I just want people to see those videos and I don't want them to clutter up my channel here. As World of Monsters is a pretty broad spectrum of monstrous passions. How about we nitpick more on things we liked and didn't in the comments?